we have 450 independently owned and operated franchise locations. They contribute to the National Marketing Fund, but they also do local marketing as well. So when you think about, from a website perspective, I have an overall comfortkeepers.com website, but I also have 400 other websites where people can engage along the journey as well. Of course, the overall challenge is I can send a lead to an office, and I rely on them to take in the information, go out and convert that person into a client or a caregiver as well. So we had a huge gap with visibility. So imagine you do a search for home care, and you click on a pay-per-click ad, and you end up on comfortkeepers.com. You like what you see, and you find a location and dial that number. Well, previously, we had no visibility into all of the local numbers that were being dialed based off of the national advertising that was happening. So, somebody would call an office directly, and a franchisee would think, oh, this is great, I've gotten a call, when, I want to be able to attribute some of our efforts to what's actually happening at the local level. So, as one would suspect, we have tracking toll-free numbers on our main website. So, those are adjusted depending on the source that they click through from, so that we can track those sources. But as mentioned, we had literally hundreds and hundreds of locations that we weren't tracking any of those calls. So if you found a location and dialed them directly, we just lost total visibility to that. And then the franchisee would think that they just got a regular call that came in probably from their own website. So, this has been great. We've started tracking everything. We have a small team in place, and we're getting thousands of calls coming in. And, now the next challenge becomes, how do we start to understand what happened to the calls, right? So we rely on understanding, where it came from, listening to recordings and transferring it. But how can we start to look at, the insight into what happened when those calls are transferred to the local franchisee? So, that has been a really incredible next step for us, because what we've been able to do is start to use analysis of the actual calls. So looking at the words that are said in the recorded calls to start to categorize those. So again, I have a very small team, and we can't listen to thousands of calls, put a disposition to those calls, and then, really try to follow up and say, okay, what was new customer, new client, new caregiver? So we've been working with DialogTech to come up with this, conversation analysis to say, can we go through a sampling and tell DialogTech, these calls, are of this type of disposition, and then let them run it through their analytics product and start to machine learn and say, okay, now I'm getting thousands of calls coming in, but I can understand what the disposition of those calls is. So we can categorize those. And now instead of saying, hey, we drove 2,000 calls this week, I can say, we drove X number of new customer calls, X number of existing customers, new caregivers, existing caregivers, other. So we can really start to break that down and get a much more granular understanding of the calls that were coming in without listening to every single phone call. When I first started, we would just be very generic in how we reported out some of the results to our franchise network. Now we can start to get more granular. But not only that, we can also improve and do better. So we can take information that we're getting from these calls, put that back to our agency that runs our pay-per-click. They can get smarter about how they're putting our ads out there as well. And then, again, the call disposition piece was overwhelming to us. I mean, just with thousands of calls coming in, if we can automate that process and, machine learn and improve and get that to a very understandable place for not only the internal folks, but the franchisee as well, that's very, very attractive to us and really takes our efforts to the next level.